Hello, everybody. Gina here from Katie Not Afraidy. I have been wanting to record this video for weeks upon weeks now, and I keep waiting for the perfect time. I keep waiting for time, and it's not easy to come by. So I figured tonight, before I get into bed, I was just gonna sit down and share with you this really impactful formula that I have been able to come up with and apply to life with my own anxious kiddo. And I thought that I would share it here with all of you. So, actually, a few weeks ago, a girlfriend of mine reached out to me. She was asking me some advice. Her son, who is 5 years old, is struggling with anxiety, and the way that it plays out for him is just a tremendous apprehension to try anything new or to go any new places. And her question to me was, number one, have you experienced this with your daughter? And number two, what do I do? Like, do I push him? Do I make him experience new things, or do I let him call the shots and keep us home? And, I wish that there was a one size fits all answer, and there's just not. And so, what I've realized, I've really been, putting a lot of thought into, gosh, how do I answer that? Because there are some times when we do push through the fear and discomfort, and there are other times when we allow her to quote unquote call the shots. And so, how do I determine when to push and when to just kind of back away and leave the ball in her court? And I realized that there are three things that I do consistently when we approach situations that she gives us pushback on. And what I realized is that I think I do have a formula. And for the purposes of sharing it with all of you, I'm going to call it the triple A formula. Because really what it comes down to is acknowledging, accepting, and then acting. And so the way that the acknowledgement goes, which I feel like is the really first step, is, say you announce that your family is going to go on vacation and you're excited about it, your partner's excited about it, maybe your other children are excited about it because you know all that is in store. You know all the fun that's going to be had, you know the adventures that await, you know all these things, and maybe in your mind, like, oh my gosh, a beach vacation is the greatest thing ever because the beach is my happy place and everybody loves the beach. But for your anxious child, maybe they don't like the beach. Maybe there are too many factors at the beach that make them feel nervous. Maybe waves make them feel nervous. Maybe the vast, sandy beaches that you love so much make them nervous. Maybe the thought of, we've never been there, what can I expect, makes them nervous. And so a lot of times, our tendency when our child tells us that they're nervous or anxious about something or opposed to something is to talk them into why they should be excited or why they shouldn't be nervous. And so when we acknowledge their fears, their anxieties, their apprehensions, we're meeting them with an incredible amount of compassion. We are saying, I see you, I hear you, and I respect you. And the way that we can acknowledge is to simply repeat back to them what it is we're hearing. Gosh, when I told you we were going to the beach, I saw your shoulders shrink down a little bit, and I saw you withdraw a little bit, and then I heard you say that you felt nervous, or I heard you say, why don't we just stay home? And so you are repeating back to them what you saw and what you heard, and you're doing it in a way that is honoring the space that they're in. The second A is to accept. Our job is not to talk them out of their feelings. As adults, we don't want anyone to talk us out of our feelings, right? We want people to accept that that's how we feel. And so there is such a gift we can give our kids in letting them know that their boundaries are important, letting them know that their experiences in this world are just as valuable as yours as the adult, and I'm not talking about equal power and all of that. That's not this topic. This topic is just really a shared understanding that we can have an emotionally intelligent conversation together, and that I'm going to hear you and I'm going to see you, and I'm not going to force you into seeing it my way. I'm going to acknowledge that you feel that way, and then I'm going to accept that right now in this moment, that is your truth. That is your child's truth. Accept that. And then the third A is to act, okay? So you've gathered this information, you've acknowledged where they're at, you've accepted where they're at, and now you're going to dig a little bit deeper. And this is where you're really going to start asking those, those pointed questions of, gosh, I saw that you seemed really nervous. And then you asked if we had to go to the beach and couldn't we just stay home instead? And I'm wondering, what makes you feel uneasy about going to the beach? We are not to assume that we know. Sometimes anxiety is really far-fetched, and it can seem really unrealistic to the person who is not struggling with anxiety. But when you are struggling with anxiety, even the most asinine scenario can absolutely feel like your total reality. And so we shouldn't assume that going to the beach feels scary because they might get swept away by a wave. Maybe going to the beach feels scary because there are seagulls there and the seagull might chase them, okay? This is not that far off from conversations that happened in my home, okay? And so you're asking them questions and you're allowing them to talk. And again, you're acknowledging and accepting the answers that they give to you. And then you are acting. You are helping come up with an action plan. Okay, so yeah, there are seagulls at the beach. That happens. That's where they live. And they're hungry. I know they're hungry. And so, gosh, there is a possibility that they might want to have your sandwich. But let's talk about what that looks like. What would happen if you were holding your sandwich and a seagull came by and snatched it out of your hands? Do you think that they would go after the sandwich or they'd go after your finger? Blah, blah, blah. Well, what can we do? What can we do? Can we, what if we bring our little shade tent and you eat under there and it would be kind of like a shelter for you? Would that make you feel more comfortable? Would it make you feel more comfortable if we ate at a picnic bench outside of our car and then just played on the beach, right? So you're helping them come up with an action plan. I always do the what if game with my kids. When they express that they're fearful or nervous about something, and then they tell me what that fear is, I always love to launch into, let's talk about what that would look like. What if that did happen? What if you did get locked out at recess time? Or what if I was late to picking you up? And let's think about what that looks like. It is so empowering for our children to have a plan. And chances are they're never going to have to execute that plan, but there is so much power in knowing that you have options and knowing that you're going to be safe and knowing that you're not going to be alone, and just knowing that if worst case scenario happens, I can do A, B, C, and D. And when I kind of acted that out with my mom or my dad or my caretaker, it didn't seem that bad. And so this is where I come down to the point of, do you push them to do the thing that's outside of their comfort zone, or do you let them call the shot and say, I'm not ready for that? If once you get to that action plan part and you've talked through all the scenarios and you've come up with the plan and they are still 100% totally resistant. Also, a part of the plan that I really love to insert when things feel really heightened with anxiety is, what if we go and we try it for 30 minutes? or you be the judge of what feels like a decent amount of time. I know if we're going to the beach, there's going to be a really long drive there. So, something like that might not be applicable, but if it's a birthday party or it's, a play or a music concert or, a play date at a new friend's house, you know, asking them to give it a certain amount of time and then letting them know that you're going to check in. And if they're not comfortable, you're out. No questions asked. They fulfilled their end of the deal. You're going to fulfill yours. Okay. So that's that's always part of a plan for me when it makes sense. Okay. So if then you've come up with that action plan, you have an agreement or you pose an agreement and they're still going, and they're still wanting to hyperventilate and they're still letting you know that that sounds like the most awful idea in the world, that's when you honor their courage and telling you, I am not ready for this yet. I just recently submitted an article. I'm hoping maybe it will be published. I don't know. To a mental health organization, but it talks a lot about courage being subjective. And I know I posted about that earlier this morning. And that sometimes the bravest thing our kids can do is look us square in the face with so much love and so much desire to please us and so much desire to see us happy and say, nope, I'm not ready for that. I don't feel comfortable with that. That's not right for me yet. That takes so much courage. And we ought to meet them in that very, very brave place with our acceptance and support of that decision. So I hope that helps. AAA, right? Acknowledge, accept, act. Make an action plan. So I'm always here to talk about things. I really love the questions that this community brings, and I will always do my best to share authentically and from personal experience. I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed. I am simply a mama who has a generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis and a daughter who also has anxiety. So everything that I share here is from lived experience. Thank you for being here and ask your questions. Have a good day.